All right, so today we are working on a 2010 BMW 535i, also known as the E60. Our goal today is to change the spark plugs on this vehicle. The spark plugs, this vehicle is a inline 6, so it has 6 spark plugs underneath 6 coils, which are housed underneath this engine cover. We can't just take out the engine cover. There's a series of steps that we need to do. And any do-it-yourself person should be able to, do these tasks instead of going to the dealership to get the service done. So first, in order to remove the engine cover, we have to remove this entire piece over here, which will come out in 2 steps, and we will go over the tools that we need and exactly how to do it. And when you change your spark plugs, it's a good opportunity for you to also have cabin air filters. If you haven't changed them in a while, because underneath both these covers are cabin air filters, and it's also a great opportunity for you to check your brake fluid, which is going to be underneath this area. So it's sort of a trifecta where you can do your cabin air filters, check your brake fluid, do your spark plugs, and since you're at it, actually you can add a 4th thing is to check your ignition coils. The spark plugs on this vehicle have not been changed in about 50,000 miles, so that's why we're going to be changing them. All right, so some of the tools that we're going to need for this project are obviously we're going to need our new spark plugs, and we have OEM spark plugs for this vehicle directly through the dealership. You can get them through various channels, Amazon, eBay. They're much more affordable. We're going to need a special BMW 14mm thin wall socket. It's a 12-point socket. You cannot change these particular spark plugs without this socket. So make sure you have this socket. We're going to need a standard ratchet 3/8 with an extension. You're going to need a screwdriver. You're going to need 2 Torx bits, one T30 and one T20. The T30 one is going to be used to remove the 4 screws on the engine cover, and the T20 is going to be used to remove 2 brackets which hold the cabin air filter area. And then we have our standard ratchet, cordless ratchet set here. We're going to rely on the 14mm primarily. All right, the first thing we're going to do is remove this housing over here, the cabin air filter for the passenger side. So in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is pull this rod back. As you can see, there's 2 clips here. You just sort of force it and just pull it back. That's it. The second thing we're going to do is there's a 14mm screw here. We're going to loosen it. Do not use a lot of force. Just give it a half turn. There's only a clip holding it beneath, you see, and it releases. Then we're going to remove this sensor right here as a switch. We just press this clip right here and it comes out. And then there's another, and this is the hood release switch, by the way. And then we have another sensor here related to the air conditioning, how well the air circulates. And we just turn it and it comes out. So now what we've done is we are able to remove this unit, and it comes out in one piece. And as we said earlier, it's a great opportunity for you to change your air filter, cabin air filter. This comes out and you're done with this step. We have actually used our air compressor and blown away all the dust, and we think this can last another 4 to 5 months. So we're not going to change it for this step. Next, what we're going to do is we have to open the rest of this, and there's 3 similar screws right here. Again, all 14mm, and that's going to be our next step. Wall socket, it's a 12-point socket. You cannot change these particular spark plugs without this socket. So make sure you have this socket. We're going to need a standard ratchet 3/8 with an extension. You're going to need a screwdriver. You're going to need 2 Torx bits, one T30 and one T20. The T30 one is going to be used to remove the 4 screws on the engine cover, and the T20 is going to be used to remove 2 brackets which hold the cabin air filter area. And then we have our standard ratchet, cordless ratchet set here. We're going to rely on the 14mm primarily. All right, so now what we're going to do is loosen these 3 bolts, and we're going to be able to take this out. And there's a T20 screw right here, right there, which we're going to have to remove. Now we are right by the driver's side, and we're going to do the same procedure in order to remove this cabin air filter housing. We are going to pop open this rod, push it back, and we have 1 screw, and we got the same T20 Torx. bit. So, you know, again, just like we did on the right side, we're gonna pull this back. We're gonna open, we already opened that previously, and this comes out. And again, you have a cabin air filter and a great opportunity to clean this or replace it. We will remove this screw, but in the meantime, we will also remove this weather stripping. And it has 2 hooks, one on this side, and it's labeled when you want to put it back. This is your left-hand side. And then we're gonna remove the weather stripping as it goes across. Next thing we're gonna do is remove these 3 screws. Again, holding this up, similar process, very quick. All right, so now we've removed all the screws. We got the cabin air filter housings removed. So now we are going to take this plastic piece out, and it's connected with that plastic piece. So all you do is, this comes out in a piece. And there's a housing that fits into a gap here. And I'm gonna remove this car when you put it back, so it's easy for you to identify. Right there. So this piece will go back into this hole. And this is a cover that just comes off. You just pull it off. And then we do the same on this side. Next, we are ready to remove this cover. In order to remove the cover, we got to remove these 2 Torx T30 bits. But there's also 2 in the back, one right here and one here, and that's the reason we had to remove this cover. The one in the back is still hard to get to, so you're probably gonna have to move these cables. And by doing so, you know, you have more room to get down to the screw down there. So we're gonna take the time right now and get our T30 bit and remove these 4 screws. So now what we're gonna do is we are ready to change our spark plugs. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, in order to get to the 6th one is why we had to remove all the housing and stuff. So what we're gonna do for the purpose of this video is show you how to change one, and you're gonna apply the same technique for all of them. In order to open the ignition coil first, we just pop open this cover and we push, and the connector comes out easily. And then what we're gonna have to do is pull out the ignition coil. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. And it's an opportunity for you to see how good your your ignition coils are. These ones look fine. And then in there you have your spark plug. One thing that we said earlier is that you need the special socket for this, a thin wall 14mm. And just to show you, this is a standard socket, spark plug socket. If we try to put it in there, it won't go. So that's something that we learned in the process. So again, we need the special socket, and that fits there. And you want to make sure you do this with, you don't do this with power tools, because you run the risk of cross threading or stripping the spark plug. All right, so here is a video of our old spark plug. As you can see, it's pretty beat up, it's deteriorated, a lot of carbon buildup. Here is a new spark plug in comparison, no carbon buildup. And again, one of the reasons that you need the 14mm thin wall socket is it fits perfectly, as opposed to our regular 5/8 socket. It seems it goes in, but it's loose. It's not going to go into the fitting there. Here's another thing that we recommend, and you can see this recommended also by numerous mechanics, is you see there was a lot of carbon buildup, so you run the risk of the spark plug seizing into the head there. So what we're gonna do is, just for precaution, put some anti-seize, but you're not gonna put the anti-seize where, you know, the spark plug actually sparks. So just a little on the area, and it's sort of common sense. Metal on metal contact is bound to seize, so this is gonna prevent the plug from getting seized in the future. And we're just gonna put a little. That's it. We're not gonna overdo it. And then we're gonna put it back into the socket. And you want to make sure, you want to take your time and do this softly and get it in there before you use your ratchet. Make sure it doesn't get cross-threaded. It should go in freely and turn. And then you just tighten it and then you're done. All right, so once you've hand tightened the spark plug, you're ready to use your ratchet. And then you don't want to apply a lot of force because these shouldn't be overly tightened. And then you just use a torque wrench and tighten it to your vehicle specifications. Maybe in this case, 15, 20 pounds, that's it. And then you're done. The spark plug is in there. And then all you do is put your ignition coil back in. And you put your connector back in. And with these BMWs, you got to make sure that the connector fits all the way in the back. Then you close it. So that's it, and you're gonna follow the same steps for the remaining 5. All the connectors come out pretty easy, as you can see. And you're gonna pull out the spark plugs. And pull out the ignition coil in order to get to the spark plugs. All right, so now we are ready to put the cover back on. We've placed it on top of the engine. And then we're gonna put the screws on. And then we're gonna reassemble everything that we took out. And just an FYI, if you need to replace or fill up your brake fluid, it is DOT 4 for this vehicle. And right there is where you would do that. So we are gonna put the screws back in. Again, T30 Torx bit. All right, see you in a bit. All right, now we're gonna put the passenger side housing back on. And the first thing we're gonna do is put this housing, there's a section right here, the intake, which will fit into an area here, and we're just gonna push it so it sets nicely. And we're gonna make sure we have our connectors on the outside, and this sits flush. So the next thing we can do is we can put our T20 screw back in right here, so this doesn't move. And then what we will do is we will put back this housing, which will fit here, and we have to maneuver it around the gas strut and our cable, and this connects right here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our air filter housing, cabin air filter, and these clips are gonna go inside. Not rocket science. And we're just gonna set it down. We're gonna lock this back up. We're gonna put our sensors back in place, and we are done reassembling. And we're gonna do the same steps on the other side. So now we're gonna install the housing on the driver's side. We're gonna put this back into our little opening, and we're gonna try to connect these two pieces together now, and just push this in, and we're good. All right, so we're putting this cover back on. Plastic is just 2 clips, one on this side, one on this side. You just push it down, nothing special here. And we are gonna put our rubber gasket back on. We're gonna connect it to our 2 holes. And then we have already started the car just to make sure it starts. That's something that you actually want to do before putting all this stuff back on. But we're gonna crank it, and we're gonna take it for a spin and just make sure the ride's smooth and we don't have any codes. All right, we're about to start the car. The car started, no codes, and we're gonna take it for a spin now and come back and tell you, how it felt. Wow, that definitely improved the ride. So we highly recommend you change the spark plugs every 50,000 miles on this vehicle. You're really gonna enjoy it.